everyone. This is Quentin Figueroa with Slayerment.com, and we are going to be talking about the price for being better. Okay, so we see kind of more and more in the news and in society in general that when somebody makes better decisions, or they work harder at something, or they plan for the future, or do kind of anything that creates success or favorable outcomes, that other people on the other end attack them, right? Because they are either jealous or hateful or upset about this type of thing. And if we kind of look more into it, this is kind of the doctrine that fuels socialism, because you have kind of people at one end of a spectrum that are perhaps upset about somebody else having more than them, or they kind of see themselves as a victim, as not having kind of the same circumstance or luck or environment that somebody else had. So they end up kind of blaming this other person who has something without actually seeing why that person has that very thing that they're upset about. Right? So because the general socialist doctrine is that you have more than me because you exploited me. Right? Somebody has more than another person because they somehow hurt them. It's a zero-sum game with socialism. If somebody gets more, that means somebody else got less. Right? So if somebody gets more, somebody else is losing something with socialists. And that is not the case always. I mean, most cases, that's not the case. If somebody's getting more, it could be both people are winning, right? So in an exchange, if I'm selling you something like a phone that you want and you give me money for it, I value your money more than the phone. You value the phone more than your money. We are both winning. It's not zero sum, right? So most things in society are not this type of thing where somebody's getting hurt by somebody else winning. Everybody's winning as they do exchanges and do things. But anyway, that's kind of the doctrine, is that you're exploiting somebody by doing what you're doing. And socialists, that's their kind of thing that they're not happy about. They want to equalize things and see it as the rich or the more fortunate, or these people that have more, they need to be brought down, and these other people need to be brought up by bringing these other people down, right? So let's dig into this a little bit. So you got a relationship like this with children and parents, right? So the child is the one that is kind of subservient, or at least they're kind of under the parent in this way. The parent kind of instructs the child, right? So the parent might say, you're going to need to go to school. I want you to kind of learn these things. I don't want you to always eat candy. I want you to pick up your room. I want you to brush your teeth. They're kind of instructing these things to the child, and kind of they're helping them grow, right? This is part of growth, is learning and getting instruction and then using it and kind of understanding the principles behind it and this kind of thing. So the parent's doing that, and from the parent's perspective, this is a very good thing. But from the child's perspective, this is a very mean and bad thing, right? So the child isn't happy about this. It's essentially growing pains, right? So as they're growing, it's hard and it's challenging and it's frustrating sometimes. And so they're kind of doing this stuff. They're learning and growing, and the parent's instructing them, but from their perspective, it sucks. And the parent is a bad person because they're better than them at something, and they're kind of showing them how to be better also, right? So we have to consider this parent-child relationship. And the same relationship exists with a lot of things. You also have, say, the child and the teacher at school, right? So the instructor teaching them is just like the parent. They're guiding them and kind of helping them grow in various subjects. And this is painful and kind of not always fun. It should be fun, and sometimes it is, but it's not always fun for the child to learn. It's not always fun for adults to learn. Sometimes taking the medicine just isn't fun. But in the long run and later on, the effects of that are quite fun and beneficial and helpful. So we need to kind of think about this and consider it, right? So it's not just that, right? This is kind of the assumptions with things. If you're smarter than somebody, you're kind of arrogant and you're a nerd, right? If you're a better athlete, you couldn't have possibly earned it or worked for it. If you're wealthier, then you're just lucky, right? And you don't deserve it. If you're better looking, you were born with it, and that's the end of the story, and you're probably a vain person and a bad person. All these kind of generalities about kind of being better at something, or more kind of the desired end goal at something. You have this kind of thing going on. if you look at the genders, right? So there are things that some people just are better than others at, right? It's not like everybody's a blank slate and equal and has the ability to be anything they want to be. Some people are naturally geared more towards certain things. So if you look at men and women, they're not the same by any means. Men are better at certain things than women, and women are better at other things than men, right? So men, they're going to be better at sports. That's just the way it is. They're more physically robust. They're better physically for things requiring strength, which sports usually do, right? Men are generally better at working. They're kind of geared towards that type of thing. Men are better risk takers. They are geared to take more risks and handle more pressure than women. These types of things. And just by me saying this, the fact that I'm a guy saying that men are better than women at certain things is already going to upset a lot of people, right? So I'm already paying a price for being better than women at certain things. So I'm already paying a price for being better, because when you're better, you usually end up paying a price. And this is not to say that women aren't better than men at other things, right? Women they're much more nurturing. They're better with younger children than men in general, right? They're more sensitive and in tune with their emotions. There are a lot of things that women are better than men at. And by me saying this, it's going to piss a lot of men off, right? But if I was a woman saying this, it would really piss men off, because they're going to go by more so the identifying thing than the actual argument itself. But either way, if you kind of say how something is better at something else, that pisses people off, and you pay a price for saying that, for noticing that, for kind of stating reality or facts, right? And what tends to happen is a group that is better most often is the one that is attacked, and they get attacked more and more, right? So there's also another part to this, is that when you're usually better at something, it's not by luck. It's usually by choice, right? So if somebody's wealthier, they usually chose to become wealthier. They educated themselves, they research things, they work towards it, and they kind of put themselves in that position. Yeah, of course there's exceptions, and some people are born wealthy and whatever. But in most cases, people who are wealthy, they choose to be there. People who are poor choose to be there also. I have a video talking about that. But somebody who's athletic, they choose to be there. Yeah, some people are naturally more athletic, but in general, people choose to be that. And people who are better looking, say you're healthy and you have a nice body and this type of thing, you are choosing to be that. It's not something you're born with, right? Yeah, some people might have easier job doing that or better genetics or whatever. But in general, these things are choices also. So most places people end up are choices. And most people have a hard time with that, because they want it to not be a choice, because then it allows them to be a victim and to not have to change their choices. And it allows them to kind of attack somebody for being better. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. So then what happens is you have these people who aren't better constantly attacking the people who are better, right? So if you're richer than somebody else and you work towards it and you made decisions, right? So maybe somebody was out partying in high school or college and kind of doing that type of thing, blowing money at college, taking out student loans, and you were just like on the internet researching things, preparing, and building a business, and not going out and drinking and wasting money and wasting time. You were reading books, you were experimenting with businesses, and you're doing all these things, and then 10 years later, they're broke and in debt, and you're wealthy. Well, these are choices. This isn't luck. You didn't just, oh wow, you didn't just randomly become wealthy. You created decisions that brought you there. And now this other person, people who make decisions that create outcomes they don't want, they now come and pester you, and they keep attacking you for being better, right? So they're gonna keep coming to you and saying, look, you need to help other people out. You're not kind. You don't have a heart. All these types of things. They're gonna just keep barraging you emotionally and any way else to kind of break down your character, to make you more apathetic. And through attrition, this works. And people do kind of start to feel apathetic towards other people, and they will just kind of give them something or help them and do things to kind of get the nagging to stop. And that right there is the price you pay for being better, right? Because you never see the reverse of this. You never see a rich person going to a poor person and constantly badgering them, telling them that, look, you aren't helping me. You need to do more for me. If that were to ever happen, people would freaking be super upset about it, because it's just it's rational, but people would be mad about it because it just seems so not right, right? So if you were to have anybody who's better at anything than another person badgering the people that are weaker, they would get upset. The weak people would be super mad about it, and it's just not allowed. But why? Why is that off limits? Why is it okay for weak people to attack these stronger people that earned it or worked towards it? These are outcomes that are a result of different choices. And it's weird to assume that the outcome somebody has isn't part of their choice, and that it's okay for somebody to attack them. But of course, that's the price you pay. And we see this with the races between different people, right? So just like how genders are different, races are different too. And I know saying this already pissed a lot of people off, but it's reality we live in. Not every race is the same. Asians, whites, blacks, Hispanics, they all have kind of pros and cons and differences. You can see this if you look at IQ, you can see it if you look at athleticism, you can see it if you look at culture, everything, right? There's differences. And yeah, the differences might be minor and they might not be that big, but these differences do create kind of different outcomes. And if one difference is better than another one, then somehow it makes it okay for this other race to now attack the better race at something, right? And it's just weird so we don't know necessarily what causes these differences fully, right? It could be partially genetic, it could be cultural, it could be environment, and it's probably a little bit of everything, right? But the fact that certain groups might be better at something doesn't make it okay for the lesser group to attack. But that's what happens, the same way a poor person would attack a rich person. And you see that because when somebody knows that they're worse at something, it's kind of pointing a light in their corner saying that you need to change that, and that's not fun. It goes back to the child and the adult, or the child and the teacher. They see that they're inferior to this other person or group, and they know that in order to be at that level, they have to change themselves. And rather than changing themselves, it's much easier and comfortable to make an excuse and say that other person is there by luck or by something outside of your control or their control. And that is what happens with freaking like almost everything in society, is you always have these people blaming something rather than what it actually is itself. And that's kind of what I'm trying to say. Because you have to understand, at some point or another, being better or being right or being more educated or any of these things, it's a price that you're going to pay. Because it's always okay for the lesser to attack the greater, but never for the greater to attack the lesser. It makes no logical sense, but that's the way it always is, and that's the way it happens. You just get hit on. You get attacked more and more when you're better, and eventually you become apathetic. They whittle you down, and then you kind of render to them what they want. That's the price you pay for being better. And it never goes the other way around. If you're weak or poor, you're always justified in attacking the better. And then, of course, what happens is the lesser always kind of pulling at the greater, or the better, they are not only hurting themselves, but they're hurting the greater. So they're bringing everyone down with them, right? Like I talked about, the better people, they want to bring other people to their level. The lesser people want to bring greater people down to their level. So everybody's losing from the lesser, constantly beating down on the better. And that's the price you pay for being better. That's what's going to happen, right? So who is better? Well, all you have to do is look at who's being attacked, right? Who is always in the media being attacked for being, these bad people? Who are the ones that want to help people, like a parent wants to help a child by teaching them to grow, not by giving them things, right? They want to teach people how to fish. They don't want to give them a fish. Who is wrong for wanting to advance society through virtue, through integrity, through wisdom, through self-reliance, through all these types of things, right? Who is wrong for wanting to do that? Right? Who's wrong for wanting to take the higher road than opposed to taking the lower road? Who is wrong for wanting to be better or for creating better or for doing better, right? Who is wrong for not wanting to give everything that they work for by choice and through effort? Who's wrong for not wanting to give that away just freely for people who don't want to do that? Because if you don't want to do that, you are branded as wrong, and that's a price you pay. It's crazy. So who is that, and why is that, right? Because shame on you for being better.